chosen ones, you have felt it, though perhaps in whispers at the edge of your dreams. A mark not carved by human hands, but branded upon your spirit before the foundations of the earth. That is your astral seal. Those who carry it are watched, and those who watch it are shaken. Even the halls of power tremble when it is glimpsed, for the unseen realm leaves its imprint on the visible world. There are whispers from the highest corridors of government, stories sealed away behind classified doors. A president once sat across from his advisor as the air grew unnaturally still. What should have been an ordinary briefing became something else entirely. The advisor saw you, not your face, not your body, but the seal hovering in the unseen layers beyond your flesh. His heart faltered. He excused himself, his resignation signed before the ink of the report had even dried. The astral seal had undone him. But why? What was it he saw? Why did the sight of your seal unravel the composure of a man trained in state secrets, wars, and conspiracies? Because your seal is not a symbol. It is a map, a code, a convergence of what lies above and below, past and future. It speaks in geometry and flame, in patterns no eye can hold for long. It is not merely a mark, it is an announcement. The seal does not exist in isolation. It is tethered to prophecy, and prophecy has a way of breaking into the affairs of nations. That is why men in suits grow pale when whispers of it rise. That is why advisors lose sleep. That is why one man walked away, unable to carry what he had seen. For your seal declares a future the world is not ready to face. You have carried it unknowingly. But now, the hour comes when you must awaken to its weight. The advisor's departure was only the beginning. Behind the silence, the seal continues to shine, hidden, yet undeniable. And soon, chosen one, those who once tried to ignore it, will be forced to reckon with its power. He had stood at the president's right hand for nearly 2 decades. Through scandals, wars, and late-night calls from distant embassies, his voice had steadied the room. He was a man the nation would never know by name, but the weight of his influence could tilt decisions that shifted the lives of millions. Yet all of that authority unraveled in a single moment. The moment he glimpsed what should have been impossible, the shimmer of your astral seal. It did not arrive with sound, nor thunder, nor flash of fire. It was quieter than a whisper, yet heavier than a mountain. A translucent glow moved across your unseen form, as if lines of light had been carved into the air itself. His eyes widened, his body frozen. For years, he had studied intelligence reports of phenomena deemed unexplainable, but nothing prepared him for the direct collision of spirit and sight. What he saw could not be denied. The seal marked you, and its presence alone confronted him with a truth too vast for his rational mind. He excused himself, his hands trembling as he clutched the edge of the mahogany table. Papers scattered as though they no longer mattered. The president called after him, but the advisor's footsteps quickened down the corridor, echoing against the marble until they vanished into silence. Hours later, his resignation letter appeared on the desk, unsigned by hesitation, written with the clarity of a man who had been shattered. Those who knew him whispered in confusion. Why would a man so steady abandon the post he had vowed never to leave? They would never understand that it was not politics, nor pressure, nor scandal that broke him. It was the glimpse of something that should not have been there, something that bent reality in his presence. The astral seal had left its impression not only on his eyes, but on his soul. He carried its image with him into the night, unable to rest, unable to explain. A man whose loyalty had been unshakable now walked away because truth had walked in. The Oval Office has always been a chamber of shadows as much as light. Every portrait on the wall watches in silence. Every carpet thread carries the weight of decisions unspoken. Yet there was a night when that room became more than a seat of earthly power. The seal did not remain hidden in the unseen. It pressed into the very air, leaving an imprint that lingered where advisors, generals, and presidents once stood. It began with a subtle shift, the kind that unsettles the spirit before the mind can name it. A strange stillness fell, as if the clocks on the wall had lost their rhythm. The president looked up, his pen frozen above a classified document, and in the curve of his vision he caught a faint luminescence. At first he dismissed it as fatigue, the trick of weary eyes after midnight hours. But the glow did not fade. It sharpened, carved into patterns he could not recognize yet could not dismiss. The astral seal had manifested, its imprint etched into the heart of the room that shaped the destiny of nations. Some claim the seal appeared as burning lines across invisible parchment. Others say it looked like a constellation folded into geometric form, stars rearranged to spell a language older than man. Whatever the truth, it carried a weight that pressed against the soul. Those who were present would never confess openly. But years later, they admitted the air itself seemed alive, charged, as if heaven and earth were colliding in silence. The president reached out instinctively, his hand trembling, yet the glow receded before touch. It was not meant to be handled like an artifact. It was a sign. And with signs come responsibilities, burdens too heavy for those unprepared. For in that moment, he remembered a fragment of scripture his grandmother once recited in the quiet of his childhood. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. The words of Yeshua pierced through his memory like a key turning in a locked chamber. The Oval Office, the very center of power, had become a witness to something far older than politics. The seal is no ordinary mark. Those who have attempted to study it in silence speak of lines that bend space and angles that refuse to remain fixed. What begins as a circle dissolves into a spiral, and what seems a triangle becomes an endless series of unfolding pyramids, each one opening into another realm of meaning. Scholars of sacred design have whispered that it is geometry alive, a pattern that breathes. The advisor who walked away had seen only a glimpse, yet even that glimpse revealed a truth that shook him. The seal was not drawn with ink nor carved with stone, but existed in layers of light, each line pulsing as if it carried memory within it. Ancient texts describe symbols that descend into the world from higher planes, and the seal matched those hidden descriptions almost perfectly. It was as though the mark upon you was written before human languages were born, before rulers measured their empires in sand and stone. In laboratories where classified projects are concealed, there were attempts to replicate the seal with holographic projections. Yet, every model failed. The geometry would not stay still. Machines could not catch it, as though the very pattern rejected being imprisoned in glass or code. It was only when it hovered upon you that the lines held steady, alive yet unshaken, revealing themselves not to science, but to destiny. Some claimed the seal was a key to harmonics, a resonance that could unlock the pulse of the universe itself. Others said it was a curse, a binding etched upon those chosen without consent. But those who looked deeper began to realize it was neither curse nor tool. It was identity. The seal was you, and you were the seal. A living geometry woven into flesh and spirit alike. The ancient mystics spoke of this when they said the heavens declare order, and the earth echoes its reflection. The seal is that reflection, a bridge between what is seen and what cannot yet be named. And though men fear it, though governments study it, the geometry will not bow to them. It waits for you to recognize what they cannot. The council hall was built for secrecy, a chamber buried beneath layers of stone and steel, where the highest matters of state were whispered beyond the ears of nations. It was here that world leaders gathered, drawn not by treaty nor war, but by the question of the seal. The advisor who had walked away left behind fragments of testimony, enough to stir fear in those who had never seen it with their own eyes. And so they came, sitting in silence around the long table, the air thick with the weight of things unspeakable. At first, it was only words. Papers shuffled, theories unfolded, diagrams passed from hand to trembling hand. Yet the moment they spoke of the seal aloud, the room shifted. It was not lightning nor earthquake, but a quiet hum beneath their voices, as if another presence had entered the chamber unnoticed. The lights flickered, the shadows stretched, and some swore they heard a faint breath moving just above their shoulders. One of the men present, an aged diplomat who had hidden a Bible in his childhood beneath floorboards of persecution, leaned back in his chair, his eyes closed as if struck by memory, and from his lips escaped words he had not spoken in years, a whisper so soft it was nearly drowned by the hum. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The hall froze. His voice cracked as he realized what he had spoken, a verse of Yeshua that carried into the silence like a torch. None dared laugh, for the weight of the moment was undeniable. It was as if the seal itself demanded the memory of that voice, echoing through time to remind them that no council, no government, no power could extinguish what had been marked. Fear spread among them, though no one admitted it aloud. For in the whisper of Scripture, they felt the weight of destiny. The seal was not only geometry, not only fire, but word, living word etched into flesh, crossing ages to announce itself again. There are places in the world where time does not move as it should, where the clock's hands falter, and the air folds in on itself. The chamber where your seal was once revealed is one such place. It was not crafted by accident, nor was it built for ordinary use. Those who entered reported sensations that could not be measured, memories bleeding into the present, futures flashing like sparks, and moments stretching far longer than their seconds allowed. The chamber itself seemed alive, as though stone had learned to breathe. When the astral seal shimmered within that room, the very fabric of time bent around it. Papers upon the table aged and then reversed, ink fading and returning in loops. Watches on wrists spun forward then backward, as though mocking the rhythm of mortal days. Even the shadows betrayed their sources, stretching where no light was cast. It was as though the seal refused to be bound by chronology, declaring that destiny is not measured in hours, but in eternity. One witness claimed he saw his own childhood reflection standing across the table, a boy with wide eyes staring back at him through the shimmer of the seal. Another swore that he glimpsed a version of himself aged beyond recognition, frail and trembling, yet smiling with an understanding that words could not carry. Such visions were dismissed in reports, but the terror in their eyes could not be erased, for the seal revealed more than geometry, more than light. It revealed time itself as fragile, as if past and future were threads waiting to be rewoven. It forced those who entered the chamber to confront their own place in a tapestry they could neither control nor escape. And in that realization, fear gripped them. For the seal suggested that all they built, laws, governments, empires, were temporary shadows against a reality too vast to contain. The chamber still stands, though few dare to enter now. Its doors remain sealed not by locks of metal, but by dread. For those who step inside know that they may not leave the same, and time itself may demand a price for their intrusion. After his resignation, the advisor vanished from public record. Officials claimed he retired quietly, but whispers told another story. He had retreated into silence, haunted not only by the seal but by visions that came afterward, visions that stalked his nights and broke into his waking hours. In one such vision, he described to a confidant what he could no longer bear to carry alone. He had seen beings of fire, wings layered in countless eyes, their presence shaking the very ground beneath him. The seraphim did not speak as men speak. Their voices were like waves crashing against the soul, a resonance that pulled him into awe and terror at once. He tried to look away, but their gaze pierced deeper than flesh, reaching into the marrow of his spirit. Around them swirled a radiance too bright for mortal sight, yet in that brightness he caught glimpses of patterns familiar to him, the same lines and curves that had burned across your astral seal. The geometry of heaven itself was alive upon their wings. One of the beings drew near, its flame neither consuming nor sparing, and though the advisor trembled, he heard within himself a voice that did not belong to his own mind. "The mark you saw is not the end, but the beginning." The words rang like thunder within his chest, and he fell to the ground as though crushed by their weight. When he lifted his eyes again, the seraphim were gone, but their presence lingered as heat in the air, a fire that would not cool. The experience left him shaken beyond repair. He carried the memory of their radiance as a man carries a wound, both holy and unbearable. And though he tried to reason it away, he could not escape the echo of another scripture long buried in his memory. "They shall see the Son of Man, coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Yeshua's words haunted him, binding the seal and the seraphim into a single revelation he could not untangle. If the advisor truly glimpsed the seraphim, then the seal is no longer a hidden mark. It is a sign acknowledged by heaven itself. The astral seal was never meant to remain in silence. What began as a whisper in the Oval Office soon spiraled outward, reaching the ears of foreign powers. Intelligence channels carried fragments of the story, stripped of detail yet heavy with unease. The resignation of the advisor was noted by agencies overseas, and before long, whispers of the seal reached tables where world leaders gathered. Some dismissed it as myth, yet others, versed in the hidden sciences, trembled at the description. In one midnight exchange, a document classified beyond the reach of ordinary eyes moved across a table in a dimly lit chamber. The report spoke not of weapons nor of strategies, but of a pattern of light, a geometry said to have burned itself into the very fabric of reality. Scientists argued whether such a thing could be contained, while generals wondered if it could be weaponized. What they did not understand was that the seal was not an object to hold, but a revelation to endure. As the whispers grew louder, nations began to stir. Some feared that whoever bore the seal would hold a power greater than armies, a force not bound by treaties or borders. Others saw in it the fulfillment of prophecies long buried, texts that warned of a mark appearing in the final age. In secret gatherings, rulers debated whether to suppress all knowledge of it or to pursue the bearer at any cost. Storms of unrest followed. Markets shook, not because of economic collapse, but because unseen hands feared a future they could not control. Alliances cracked, leaders grew restless, and the air of conspiracy thickened until even ordinary citizens sensed something hidden, pressing against their world. For the seal had not only appeared in one chamber of power, it had sent ripples across the entire globe. Nations that once stood confident now grew uneasy. The balance of order trembled, and those who had built their towers of authority felt cracks forming at the foundation. The seal was more than a mark. It was a declaration, a reminder that human thrones are fragile when measured against eternal patterns. There is always a shadow that follows the flame. When your astral seal began to stir across the halls of power, something else moved alongside it, a presence that did not carry light, but thrived in its reflection. The seal shone as geometry alive, lines of eternal design, but around its glow gathered the darkness of those who feared what it announced. Not all who studied it sought understanding. Some sought dominion, some sought to bury it, and others, cloaked in secrecy, sought to twist it into a weapon. The shadow did not come in thunder or smoke. It came in whispers, in plans drafted under red lights, in laboratories where silence was enforced by fear. There were attempts to mimic the seal, to force its design onto matter, to capture its resonance in machines. Yet every effort failed. The flame recoiled when men tried to cage it, and the failures left scars in places never spoken of. But the shadow did not relent, for it believed that if the flame could not be captured, it could at least be corrupted. In old scrolls buried beneath cathedrals and temples, there were warnings of such ambition. For wherever divine light appears, resistance rises. One fragment spoke of the serpent who coils beside the fire, waiting for the moment to strike. The seal, it seemed, had awakened not only heaven's attention, but also the echo of rebellion that has haunted humanity since the beginning. Some of the men who pressed closest to its mystery began to lose themselves. Their eyes grew hollow. Their voices carried weightless tones, and their loyalties no longer seemed tied to the nations they served. They were drawn into something else, something unseen yet undeniably real. In their hunger for control, they became vessels of the shadow, mirrors that reflected nothing but absence. And so, the astral flame now burns with an enemy beside it, a watcher that waits in the dark corners of power, hoping to intercept its rising. The seal is no longer contested by doubt alone. It is hunted by forces older than government and deeper than conspiracy. There had long been rumors of a figure who guarded secrets older than nations, a figure known only in fragments, spoken of as the keeper of seals. Few believed such a person truly existed, dismissing it as a myth woven into whispers of ancient orders. Yet, when the astral seal began to make itself known, the presence of this keeper could no longer remain hidden. For the seal was not merely a symbol on one soul. It was part of a lineage guarded through ages, a chain of mysteries carried across generations by those who bore the weight of silence. The unmasking came not in ceremony, but in exposure. A file, redacted beyond recognition, slipped through the cracks of secrecy and reached eyes unprepared for its weight. The pages told of a man who had appeared across centuries, always in different names, always in different places, yet bearing the same aura, the same trace of knowledge that could not be confined to time. His face seemed unchanged through decades of blurred photographs, his signature scattered in archives older than some nations themselves. The keeper was no ordinary guardian. He carried within him the memory of seals forgotten, each one tied to divine mysteries. Some bore marks of judgment, others of mercy, yet all converged in the astral seal you now carry. It was his task to conceal, to protect, to guide the timing of revelation. But now the time for concealment was ending. His mask of anonymity began to crack, and the world, though it did not yet realize it, was on the verge of seeing him unveiled. When confronted in the shadows of a cathedral's lower chamber, the keeper spoke few words. His voice carried the weight of one who had seen empires rise and fall. The seal was never mine to hold. It belongs to the flame that walks in you. His eyes, pale with memory, did not waver as he spoke, and those who heard felt the ground tremble, as though his words had loosened the foundation of the earth. The whispers of the astral seal had rippled through advisors, halls of power, nations, and hidden orders, yet all of it was only preparation for the last unveiling. The keeper had spoken of it in fragments, hinting that the seal you carried was not alone, but part of a greater convergence, the final seal that would emerge when the hour of reckoning drew near. It was said that when this seal manifested fully, silence would fall across the earth, for even the loudest voices would be unable to speak against its presence. The silent witness was the name given in ancient manuscripts to the one who would stand in the moment of its opening. Unlike prophets who cried aloud, unlike kings who thundered commands, this figure would not declare with words, but with the sheer weight of presence. The witness would not argue, would not persuade, but simply stand, and in that standing, truth would be undeniable. The seal itself would testify, and the world would be forced to listen without defense. Reports hinted that the seal had already begun to change shape, no longer the single imprint of light that hovered in secret, but a living flame folding into new geometry. Each shift revealed another layer, a deeper resonance, a frequency that pulled creation itself into attention. Some claimed the stars bent subtly in alignment, others that the Earth's core trembled in quiet pulses. Whatever the cause, it was clear that the final seal was not far from unveiling. And somewhere, though unseen, the silent witness was already awake, perhaps hidden among the ordinary, perhaps cloaked in anonymity, waiting for the moment the seal would rise and demand their presence. When that moment arrives, it will not be councils or governments that decide its meaning. It will not be shadows or conspiracies that hold it back. The silent witness will stand, and the seal will burn, and in that burning, the old order will fracture.